Ladies and gentlemen, opening government will win this debate for two reasons. Firstly, because we will prove that even in a world where these people feel that they are altruistically justified, like they may want to say, we will show you that being justified isn't really enough. Just like most regrets work, people altruistically feel they are justified for the actions they took. White people felt they were justified for rounding up black people and shipping them off to America and calling them slaves. But the point is this, when shit goes wrong, like we'll show you, at the end of the day, you regret it. It's why we are going to regret. Secondly, we explain that the current infrastructure within our world is one way in which people who have been objectively hurt have current infrastructure to help them. Things like even when they are poor, have pro bono lawyers and have corporate big body advocates who can take up their issues and really help them. So the ability to help them isn't really the debate. With that being said, a key explanation, the most important thing or two most important things in this debate will be the perception of the social group that these people advocate from, and would be the workability or the discussions of those social groups. Like, for how long will people talk about these social groups and their problems? How long will people consider them to be relevant issues? Will they be a thing to talk about? Those are the two most important issues. If those social groups get worse, if the people who talk about them get worse, then side opposition doesn't win. Let's talk. Firstly, let's talk about how when you carry out woke call-out cultures, you give the enemy an ability to get an undue advantage over you, which means even when you are right and you do what he said, you get an undue advantage. Why? Because in most cases, woke call-out cultures are about setting like very arbitrary things like values, one, very subjective things that people easily translate to or misrepresent to different sides, but three are about personal standards that people hold to themselves and what ought to be. I think you ought to be like that. I think that is what you ought to do, which means it differs from a court of law where you cannot, or where you can explicitly prove the problem. That's the clear difference between both of them. If it is so, this is why we win, because when you can't explicitly prove a problem, the victims leverage on it to portray an idea of victimhood. That is to say, when you show that you can't prove their issue, they keep saying, oh, finally, but we've not got to the middle ground yet. You've not shown that there is a clear issue here yet. You are still talking and there are still chances of innocence. Victims easily capitalize on those things. When they capitalize on them, what happens? Three things happen. Firstly, you legitimize the victim and everything the victim has ever done to you, because that is the greatest way this victim will probably never ever change. The victim, once he enters that space of victimhood and is legitimized, will probably never ever change no matter what you ever do, and you don't achieve that. But secondly, you set a precedence of doubt. That is to say, in the future, when you have a same problem from your same social group and you call out within that world, people doubt you. Why? Because the idea of victimhood of that person that was hurt still remains within this framework, or the idea of how there is a gray area that is really blurry and we haven't been able to point it down yet still remains within the framework of people. But thirdly, you alienate all your social allies. Why? Because when victimhood remains there, people don't want to hang out and that is to hang around your social ideology and stay with you, even when, because they know that they are not directly affected with it. So they should get to a point where they are now seen as just people who are blurry, shouty, call out, and people who are just attacking an innocent person who is a victim. You have a way of alienating allies, and we feel that is really bad for you. Secondly, given the fact that most woke call-out cultures happen on social media, we say social change and conversation is dead on arrival. Why do we say so? The unsustained nature of social media is such that you can post all you want, and for God helping you, for 3 days, a week even at that, you can have like the top ranking tweets. But what happens is that things can take over what is important to you, even when those things that are taking over are not altruistically more important. So today on social media, you can have a black man suffering and people post about it, but because people are now snapping or following the channel of an egg, so that Kylie Jenner will no longer be the most liked picture or the most liked channel on social media, that your conversation drops and that one becomes the best conversation, even when it is altruistically not the most important thing to ever happen. But secondly, these social media companies in themselves know that they need to be dynamic to make sales. So because of that intrinsic need for them to be dynamic, they in most cases will actively contribute to the fall of your topic and bring up a new one, because people get easily bored, right? Wokeness, notice this bit about wokeness. Wokeness gets boring easily. especially as it is continuously repeated and repeated. That dynamism is never ever gotten, and people need something new, and they need to be entertained, and you don't show that. But you are also actively trivialized, because for everything that becomes a serious issue on social media, there are people who are going to make funny comments that will be screenshotted and posted on WhatsApp. There are people who are going to make memes out of it that make these things joke. So everybody making things jokes. So everybody consider these things to be jokes at the end of the day, and they ever achieve the seriousness, which means even if you get a broader reach from the comedy, the issues don't become serious issues anymore altogether. Guys, anything? Thank you very much. So finally, guys, before I round up my PM speech, let me talk about how you create severe echo chambers, right? Because social conversation is very, very important on their side. You don't get severe echo chambers. Why? Because call-out culture has two very intrinsic characteristics. One, it is extremely intense. That is to say, you call out, insult, and do it again. But two, because it's wokeness, it is extremely intellectualized. That is to say, you find smart ways to coin it and make it look like a logically plausible thing to happen. Why is that bad? Because intellectualization works on any side of the spectrum. Today, I can prove to you why climate change is a really, really bad thing, and all of us need to kill ourselves because of what we've done to the earth. That's intellectualization. Somebody can also prove how we need to help ourselves as humans. Two sides of the spectrum, but we intellectualize both of them. Because of that intellectualization, it means severe factions will exist. People on one side, people on the other. Because intellectualization allows people to logically buy into both sides of your victim and of you. But why is that bad? And this is why we win again. The nature of social media is that it allows people to filter. People are allowed to decide what they want to see, when they want to see it, and how they want to see it. So people can decide to be more liberal, more conservative just by what they are allowed to see on social media. It therefore means that people are allowed to see what side of the spectrum they want to see of your issue. So for every Busola Dakolo, there are people who will start following Biodu Fatoribo, start following Koza, and start following everything about his channel just because that is all they want to see, and they want to believe he is innocent. This means the minds of people are now galvanized and solidified into things that are against you. Even though people can be with you, there are people who will be against you and against you forever, and it still doesn't count. At the end of today's debate, what is the perception of the group they want to help? Do we get interaction and interrogation and discussion? No. We think opening government wins.
Yeah. So we thank the Prime Minister for that speech.
Honey, what do we get from opening government? Opening government main case talk about how we are not justified by some form of altruism, and how these victims get some form of cause some form of undue advantage, and they really feel like this call-out culture does not promote any form of discourse and really does not solve any problem. So basically, opening government came to attack the solvency and necessity of call-out culture in our society. So what do we want to make you understand from some people in opposition? We want to make you understand that opening government case is actually a very shallow and touches the surface level of what call-out culture actually is. Call-out culture is not just limited to social media, but can also be about mainstream media, and can also extend to face-to-face culture that we have in our societies. So what am I trying to say? What is this call-out culture? The extent where people call out people for the wrong things that they have done in the society. So, opening government fails to talk about the parameters of regret. They say they want to regret it because it does not solve any problem and because it is not justified in our society. But when actually do we regret something? We regret something when it has done more harm than good, and we regret something when it does the opposite of what it is intended to do, and also we regret something when we do not see the benefit in the long run in our society. So basically, these guys came to show you some form of shallow harm, but we are basically going to prove to you something. What are we going to prove to you? We are going to be proving to you how call-out culture, number one, is a positive phenomenon of accountability, and how it gives victims more power and actually empowers them. And we're going to be proving this to you through a harm-benefit analysis, and we're going to be showing you how the benefits actually outweigh the harms, and how the harms that opening government actually presented has already been taken care of in the status quo through regulation and a host of other social mechanisms that society has put in place. So basically, let us engage opening government. Opening government comes to talk about how people get bored and social media makes all these kind of issues that people actually engage in color culture. It makes them seem trivial and people just drop this topic and go to another topic and they don't really solve the first issue in the first place. But we want to believe that, see, to the extent where it does not really solve anything or people get bored easily, it does not mean that we should limit the extent to which people can actually get justice for their problem. To the extent where the courts that they mention are easily manipulated and easily indoctrinated by favor the rich, to what extent do we allow victims in society and people that do not have enough social capital, people that do not have enough power to actually get justice, to what extent do we limit the amount of justice, and to what extent do we limit the cry that they can actually give to society to come to their aid? So what do we want to understand? I'll take you later. Now, the comparative here now is the orthodox one with the justice system, because I believe the opening government talked mostly about the justice system. To the extent where the justice system has actually proved to be inadequate, and if you take this thing to a more in-depth level rather than the surface level that opening government actually came to talk about, if we take it to a more in-depth level, we have to look at the benefits and we have to look at the effect that this call-out culture actually has on our society. So now we have leaders, and we have leaders that are under a contractual and legal and statutory duty. So to the extent where I hold them accountable, and to the extent where I am able and I have the right to call them out, either through mainstream media or either through some social media or whatever means that is necessary or that is convenient for me, what does that do? It creates accountability and it creates transparency in society, and it's a form of fast-track process where we have a society where our court systems are not independent but are heavily influenced by extra-legal factors and are heavily indoctrinated by the rich and are being like subjected to the disadvantages of the class strata and the class struggle and the stratifications that we have in our society. So what do we want? We want a society where I cannot find help in the courts and where I am not able to get help in this place. I will get help from the people of society who are not just easily swayed by a lot of things. So that is what we want in our own side. So that is where we show you that this thing is not something that should be regretted, but something that should actually be celebrated, because it actually increases the freedom of expression and it actually increases the amount at which people can actually get justice. And the way in which the law actually extends its arm into social areas and carries everybody along, to the extent where people have to say in society that yes, this issue was tackled by the long hands of the law in our society. So what are we trying to say? What happens when we have a society of accountability and transparency? What happens when I am able to call out somebody for doing something wrong to me? What happens when I demand my justice from that particular person? It gives sovereignty back into the hands of the people. And what is this sovereignty that we have? It empowers us and it makes us stronger. And that is what we need in society, to the extent where people can actually get the justice rather than being dominated, and rather than our society being dominated by just an oligarchical kind of system where it's just a few privileged and powerful people that will just be able to control the infrastructures and the public institutions that we have in that society. So we believe that opening governments actually argued a very, very shallow case, and they have failed to see the importance and in-depth solutions that this call-out culture actually brings in our society.
Okay, so thank you for coming back to finance. Do you agree that the financial infrastructure of mainstream media doesn't allow poor people to even go there and call out? So this debate goes back to social media.
They always talked about face-to-face culture. There are always solutions to everything. And nobody even really talked about finance in this debate. We are basically saying that call-out culture is not limited to social media, and it's not, and it can also extend to mainstream media, and it can also extend to face-to-face culture. So what we are saying, like, if you say like the only solution, like the reason you want to regret this call-out culture, you want people to just go to the court and you want people to like go and engage in pro bonos and everything, that does not really solve any problem, because at the end of the day, individuals still have biases and the courts are influenced by extra legal factors, and that is what we do not want in our society. We want a wide and open space where people have enough platforms to actually express themselves and actually demand reparations and actually get the justice that they need in that particular society. So what does this call-out culture do? What effect does it have on our society? What in-depth benefit does it give us? And these people fail to see. They say that it does not promote discourse, but to the extent where I call out a problem in society, there are a lot of serious people that will actually clean up on that case. And what does that do? It sparks conversation, it opens people's mind, it brings a lot of ideologies, and it brings solutions. What happens when we promote discourse in society? Discourse brings about change. So you could say this call-out culture is a form of like a peaceful protest that we have in society. You could say it's a form of a peaceful demonstration that we have in society that actually brings forth change and actually brings those change to the benefit of the people and the lower class and the people that do not have enough social capital, or the people that do not have enough help or power to actually get the justice that they need in in that society. So what do we have when we have that kind of change? We have utility, and we have people that are able to challenge the power of the wealthy and challenge the power of the forces that be in that society, to make them accountable and make them not to sleep on their rights, but to do exactly what it is that they're supposed to do and not harm another individual. So opening government presents to you a world of easily manipulated court systems and easily manipulated and injustice. But we present to you a world where if at all there are problems, these problems are already found, and this color culture actually promotes more benefits.
We thank the leader of the opposition for that speech and welcome the Deputy Prime Minister here.